So I'm with Spurs fan Barnaby. Barnaby, what are you up to at the moment?
We did a video a couple of weeks ago, so those of you who watched that, great, you might recognise me from having presented and produced Spurred On up until a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, Spurred On lost its funding, so not doing that anymore, but I have started an Instagram account called Spurvert, so any of you who are on Instagram and you want to see little videos of me talking all things Spurs and some kind of mainly stupid and hopefully funny picture formats around the club, check me out at Spurverts on Instagram. But most importantly, keep following and subscribing to Chris Cowlin, the YouTube legend who is keeping us up to date with all things stadium and obviously all the games as well. What we're loving your stuff from Old Trafford the other night, where I mean, either you were drunk or you were high on life, Chris. An amazing video.
High all round. It was fantastic, that game. Now, I want to talk about all things Spurs.
Right.
Obviously, you've just spoke about the Man United game. Now, everybody was down a couple of weeks ago. We didn't sign anybody.
Yeah.
Premier League starts. We've now won 3 out of 3.
Yeah.
We've got Watford today.
Yeah.
How are you finding life as a Spurs fan at the moment? Are you excited?
Do you know what? Yes, I'm excited, but I think it's hilarious the fickle nature of the press, football fans, the Twitterati especially. Hilarious how literally only 3 weeks ago Spurs were the laughing stock of online, but also in terms of the press, the articles saying, you know, Spurs didn't spend any money. It's the first time anyone in the history of the Premier League hasn't spent any money in the transfer window. Their squad is light. They're going to suffer. They're going to struggle. Last season we were going to struggle because we played at Wembley. We came third. Brilliant, incredible. This season we're going to suffer. We're going to struggle because we haven't signed anyone. 3 weeks later, because we got 3 wins. 3 wins in which I'd say we haven't even hit our straps yet in terms of form.
I agree.
And I read an article in the Times yesterday, I think, with Matthew Syed saying Spurs are doing it a new way. It's the best way. Other clubs should be following Spurs for not just signing players for the sake of it. I read another article somewhere else, you know, saying how brilliant Poch was for not wanting to sign players if they're not going to better the squad. Yeah. Now, it's hypocritical. I think that the true line is somewhere in the middle, where I think, if we're honest, we all would have loved a marquee signing. A Wilfried Zaha, I think, someone to push the rest. But when kind of in the second and third games, you looked at our squad and Lamella's coming back, Wanyama's coming back to fitness, and you suddenly look at the squad and you're like, people saying we're light, I don't agree with that. I think we've got a depth of quality in the squad who've all been together for a few years now, where, you know, we didn't think Dembele was going to stay, did we? Dembele has been one of our best 2 or 3 players in these first 3 games.
Well, everyone, more importantly, everyone thought that Toby would leave.
Yeah.
And how important is he for us?
Well, I mean, he was back, wasn't he, against Old Trafford, against United at Old Trafford, not just in the team, but in terms of the Toby we knew from 2 seasons ago,
exactly, yeah.
where he was the best player in the league, one of the best centre-back in the league, and one of the best centre-backs in Europe. And it's interesting with Toby, I think, because I'd be interested to know what it would take money-wise to make him sign a new deal. Because if it's £150,000 a week, you know, bonuses, whatever included, and Kane's now on 200, then the club should say that's worth it. And if I'm Toby Alderweireld, I'd also say, well, I had my shot at a big club. I went to Atletico Madrid, who were getting to the Champions League final. He played in the Champions League final. They won the league whilst he was at the club, I believe. And if I'm wrong, I'm sure you'll tell me in the comments below. But if you're Toby Alderweireld, he's the king here. He can play centre-back here for the next 5-6 years and have a shot at winning big trophies with us. If he goes to Manchester United, it might be like Alexis Sanchez. He's gone to Manchester United so far.
Hold on, Barnaby. Why on earth would any Spurs player go to Manchester United?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Money. That's it. Money. Kudos. You know, they are the biggest club in the world. They have tradition, they have history, and they will be there or thereabouts for certainly for domestic trophies, the cup competitions. Yeah. But I completely agree with you. Why would Toby Alderweireld look at that right now, other than for the fact that he could get 250 grand a week there, which is a lot of money, of course it is, and football is a short career, but he could become the best centre-back in the history of this club, I think, in terms of how we would revere him. Now, we revere Ledley King, rightly, cult figure, brilliant, the most talented, graceful centre-back we've ever produced. But Toby Alderweireld, as a ball-playing centre-half who does what is right all the time, when it needs to go to row Z, he puts it in row Z.
Yeah.
When it needs to be played out or cross-field pass to Dele, or the ball over the top to Dele did for Everton, he's done that a few times. He's a brilliant player, and I'm so happy that he's still here, and I'm so happy that we've kept our squad together this season.
Now, everybody, Spurs fans, non-Spurs fans, particularly non-Spurs fans, talk about Tottenham and trophies.
Yeah.
Now, this is Pochettino's 5th season in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Are the trophies coming? Do you think they're going to come soon?
So Chris and I actually had this conversation. We were walking here. I'm very glass half full when it comes to this Tottenham must win trophies thing. For Poch to stay, for Kane to stay, for Ali to stay, etc., etc. We're close to trophies, there's no doubt about that. We've come second, we've come third. We should have won it the year Leicester won. We suddenly became the most hated club in the country that year because we dared to put a challenge to, the magic that was Leicester City.
Yeah.
Now, let's be honest, Chris, if we win the League Cup this year, it's not going to shut anyone up, is it? If we win the Carabao Cup, it's not going to shut anyone up about trophies.
I'm quite a traditionalist. I like to see the strongest team out every game, whether it's League Cup, FA Cup, whatever. Yeah. And to me, as a fan, I want to win trophies.
I do too.
Regardless of what it is, whether it's a League Cup or not, I want to be there in the final.
Very political.
And winning.
Very political answer, Chris. I agree. I totally agree. I don't disagree with that at all, other than I think the necessity to play the whole squad over the season, give you 1/4 a game, make sure Harry Winks is playing a lot if he's not kind of been fit around at the moment, but I think Harry Winks will come back strong and push Dembele for that slot. What I'm going to say is I don't think it'll shut the press up, and I don't think it'll shut the opposition fans up and the Twitterati. Again, all those idiots on Twitter who say Tottenham aren't this, Tottenham aren't that. The reason they're saying this stuff, by the way, is they're threatened by us. More than 5 years ago, certainly more than 10 years ago, and certainly in the days of Alan Sugar and Irving Scholar being our chairman, nobody was threatened by Tottenham Hotspur. Now they're threatened by us. So they say this because it's almost like the last bastion of what Spurs haven't done. Because what we've done over the last 5 years under Poch is shut everybody up in all those things. I mentioned it to you before. Pochettino teams struggle at the end of the seasons because they're overtired. Not anymore. Doesn't happen. Everyone shut up about that. Harry Kane, he's not good enough. He's a one-season wonder. Shut up. Pochettino,
and he scores in August.
Spurs have got no spine. Bullshit. Pochettino is knocking these things off one by one, and and I'm sure he will now, he signed a contract, and if he stays for the next few years, we will win trophies. But also, look at Arsenal. I know it's hard to say their name on a Tottenham video, but they've won the FA Cup, I think, 3 times in the last few years. No one cares about that. No one cares about that. So I said this to Chris. I think Tottenham Hotspur's best chance of winning a trophy, and some of you are going to think I'm mad here, but our best chance of winning the big trophy that is going to matter to people is the Champions League. I think it's going to be hard for us to compete in terms of consistency with 100 points that Man City are getting, with Liverpool spending hundreds of millions of pounds, with Manchester United, if Mourinho goes, and I kind of hope he doesn't because I think he's a brilliant fit for that club at the moment. I think it's going to be hard. But in terms of the Champions League, think of last season, minutes away from beating Juventus. We'd already turned Madrid over at home, drawn with them away. Score draw. I think we would have turned them over in the next round. Then you're in the semi-finals of the Champions League. Tottenham Hotspur, I think, can go on a real run for the Champions League. I said it before to you. Yeah. Liverpool, who we've finished above 9 or 10 times out of the last 11 or something like that in the Premier League, have got to 3 Champions League finals in the last 15 years. They're not as good as us, or they haven't been over that period. What they have that makes them so good in the Champions League is Anfield on European nights. Right here behind me now, that's going to be bigger, better. Our cop is going to be louder than theirs. Teams aren't going to want to come here on European nights. It's going to be like the old glory nights of the 60s. We won the first ever European trophy that any English team won. I think we can win the Champions League. You're going to think I'm mad. Tell me what you think in the comments below. How mad am I being? But I genuinely think our best shot at it over the next couple of years, Champions League. We were close last year, I think. We're going to get closer.
Now, Barnaby, talking about Champions League, the Champions League draw was obviously this week.
Yeah.
Barcelona. Yeah. I was absolutely delighted.
Yeah, me too.
Barcelona. I've always wanted to play Barcelona. Always wanted to go to Nou Camp to watch Spurs. Absolutely. Yeah. PSV and Inter Milan. Yeah. What did you make of the draw?
Totally agree with you. I was, if any of you follow me on Spurverts, you'll have seen I did a story, I think, saying I want the hardest group possible, and I think that's a pretty hard group, I have to say. Yeah. 2 seasons ago, we got that easy group. We'd beaten Monaco the year before in the Europa League, I think 4-0 at home. We got them in the Champions League. Leverkusen were one of them, and we got turned over. We were complacent. It was our first time at Wembley. We didn't handle it well, and we didn't do a last season group of death. Dortmund, Real Madrid. We were on it, weren't we?
Fantastic.
We were on it. So I wanted the hardest group possible to keep our players at the highest possible level, and it'll happen again. And I think it's going to be incredibly exciting. Going to the Nou Camp, exactly. It's a once in a lifetime potentially opportunity to see Spurs play at the Nou Camp with the greatest player in the world, Messi, playing against us. And Barcelona think, we can turn these over. It's not going to be easy. Pochettino, his Espanyol link, he hates Barcelona. He hates them. He will have them riled up for those 2 games. Inter Milan, They're coming back. They're not who they once were. They're certainly not who they were under Mourinho when they won the Champions League a few years ago. Then obviously the year after that we turned them over, Gareth Bale ripping them to shreds. Won't be easy. They'll be defensive in Italy. It'll be a difficult game. Fancy us, PSV Eindhoven. Great time out in Holland.
Yep.
Those of you who like your Heineken. It'll be a great away day, won't it? You know what I mean? So
Heineken is supplying the beer here as well.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Beavertown, isn't it? Anyway, so yeah, I'm delighted with it. Very excited and desperate to get over to Barcelona. Yeah.
So top the group?
Top two.
Top two?
Definitely in the top two.
Yeah. Now
sitting on the fence. Sitting on the fence.
All of this talk, Tottenham were drawn same day. Tottenham were drawn at home to Watford in the League Cup.
The Carabao Cup. Yeah.
Now all of the talk now about us actually playing the game at Milton Keynes. Yeah. What do you make of that?
Well, it feels like the spectre that will never quite go away, the Milton Keynes thing, doesn't it? Obviously, we're going back a few years now, but when the plans were being drawn up for where Tottenham were going to play this season, last season away from White Hart Lane, were we going to go to Milton Keynes? It was probably the cheaper option. It was probably the option with the better atmosphere if we could have got 30,000 Spurs fans there. Yeah. But I think everyone was delighted that we didn't go to Milton Keynes. For a one-off thing, do I feel strongly about it? I'd be lying if I said I did, but I know that obviously the Supporters Trust are very upset about it and have been very vocal, and I think that's right for people to air their issues. Don't be surprised, I'd say, if the EFL reject it and the game ends up being played at Vicarage Road. That decision hasn't been made yet, I don't think, because Spurs have had to appeal it. Spurs have had to ask permission. Is that right?
From what I understand, Spurs haven't reversed the fixture because the ticket allocation would have been very small. Yeah. For us supposedly being drawn at home.
But have the EFL agreed that it can be played at Milton Keynes yet, or is that still a decision?
That's still a decision to be made.
So I might be wrong, but I wouldn't be surprised if the EFL, the Football League, don't want to start and create a precedent for this. And 3 home grounds in a season does seem a little greedy. Yeah. So Watford, I know, are angry about it. Watford have complained. And I wouldn't be surprised if, kind of to grease the wheels and make sure that not everyone's too angry, it ends up being played at Vicarage Road. And also, I have to say, I get it about the ticket allocation. I understand that. I'd fancy us at Vicarage Road in the League Cup. I think Watford would play a weakened side because the Premier League is their priority. I think our reserve team, our second team, or our squad players will be stronger than theirs. I'd fancy us there. So it doesn't bother me on a playing level as much as maybe it does other people. But we'll see. If it does happen to be at Milton Keynes, will you go?
Absolutely.
I'll go as well. I think it'll be, it's not that far. It's annoying.
I get the thing with the Supporters Trust, but me being a fan, I like to go and watch Tottenham wherever we're playing and whoever we're playing against. So that's just me.
In favour of what the Supporters Trust do, I saw a lot of tweets and people saying, what's the point of the Supporters Trust, and people, and even some ex-players, I think
they do some fantastic work.
They do some fantastic work, and I think it's important to have a mouthpiece for the fans. And you're a great mouthpiece for the fans in terms of doing this stuff and your thoughts and going to the games and vlogging and stuff like that. As are the We Are Tottenham TV boys and all sorts of people doing it. But it's important to have someone who has a link as well, or at least a line into the club. And they get to go to meetings with the club, so they know more than we do, and like you said, doing a great job.
Now, before that Watford game, we are playing Watford today, Vicarage Road, 4 o'clock kickoff. Yeah. Both teams have won 3 out of 3. Mm-hmm. How do you see that game going?
Yeah, so unlike a potential Carabao Cup game, I think this will be difficult. I think Watford will be up for it. It's a small little ground, fans very close to the pitch, good atmosphere, and they've won 3 out of 3, so they'll be confident. They've got a few players there who used to play for us. I don't think Gomez gets in the team anymore, really. I think Ben Foster has come back in for them. But obviously they've got Etienne Capoue, who has played better over the years for them than he did with us. I think he looks positive when he started for us, but then tailed off. Yeah. So it won't be easy, but we've got a good record there. Obviously, Kane scored a hat-trick there over Christmas time a couple of seasons ago, didn't he? Sonny scored the last-minute winner on that cold Saturday, I remember, with his kind of back-heeled Cruyff volleyed finish. That was brilliant. So I think if we play anywhere near our level, we should win the game. God, being a Spurs fan is so stressful sometimes. I'd love us just to score a couple of early goals, take the pressure off ourselves, play a game, but I'm not sure it'll go like that. I've said on Spurs, my Instagram account, 2-1 win to Tottenham. I'll stick to that. What are your predictions? Let Chris know in the comments below. But I don't think it'll be easy, and if we're complacent, if we're at all complacent going there, they could roll us over.
Well, I'm going for 2-1 as well, and let me give you a couple of stats. Tottenham have never lost to Watford in the Premier League.
Okay, love that.
And we haven't lost to Watford in the league since 1987.
Love that. Great stats. I'm all about that, because for me, although lots of people say stats mean nothing, and they kind of do, the opposition will look at that as well. The fans will look at that as well, and it's like, do they believe? Do they all believe they can win there today? They'll be things like that. The little 1%, the marginal gains. Hopefully that'll work in our favour. But it won't be easy. That's what I say.
Barnaby, thank you very much indeed.
No problem.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.